I used to believe that family meant unconditional love. Now I know sometimes family is just the first place you learn to hide your pain. That was the first sentence I wrote in my weathered brown leather journal the night I realized something gut-wrenching: I wasn't welcome at my own sister's wedding. My name is Claire Morgan, and I'm 27 years old. I live in Seattle in a cozy one-bedroom apartment filled with hanging plants, morning sunlight, and a coffee maker that's seen me through every phase of my 20s. I work in digital media content strategy, to be exact. I run before sunrise, brew coffee with a French press, and spend weekends at farmers markets or curled up with books I never quite finish. From the outside, I'm the girl who has it all together, the reliable one, the supportive daughter, the younger sister who always makes room for someone else's spotlight, especially Ava, my older sister by 3 years. Ava is magnetic. The kind of person who walks into a room and immediately becomes the center of gravity. In every family photo, Ava is front and center with perfect posture and a confident smile. And me, I'm usually holding the camera, or if I'm lucky, cut off halfway in the background. And the thing is, I never used to mind. We were close, at least I thought we were. I was the one she called at 2 a.m. after breakups, the one who helped her move twice, and the one who stood outside her apartment in the rain with soup and a bad joke when she lost her job. I didn't keep score. I didn't expect applause. That's just what sisters do. Right. But lately, something's shifted. The calls came less often. The thanks felt thinner. And then came the message. No phone call, no warning, just a text short and clinical. Hey, just wanted to let you know the guest list is finalized and we had to make some tough cuts. Hope you understand. Love you. Tough cuts. I reread that phrase 5 times as if I could make it mean something else. I wasn't a distant cousin or an old family friend they hadn't seen in years. I was her sister, the one who stood by her through every mess, the one who had already helped her pay a deposit for the venue last fall. And somehow I didn't make the list. That's when something inside me cracked, not with rage, not with tears, but with a quiet, steady kind of hurt. The kind that doesn't scream. It just sits with you. Heavy, cold, real. It was 10:42 p.m. when I called my mom. She answered on the second ring, upbeat as ever. Hey, sweetheart, what's going on? I didn't bother with small talk. I just got a message from Ava. She says the guest list is finalized, and I'm not on it. There was a pause, just long enough to confirm what I already feared. Oh, honey, she sighed. That tone, the one she used when I was 5 and crying over something she thought didn't matter. It's just a wedding. Don't overreact. Just a wedding. I stared at the ceiling, letting her words settle like dust. My mom didn't defend me. She didn't even act surprised. It was like she expected me to take the hit quietly, gracefully, like always. But this time, something felt different. If I wasn't important enough to be included, maybe I didn't need to be there at all. Maybe for once I needed to stop showing up for people who never save me a seat. I didn't say anything for a moment. I just held the phone to my ear and let her words hang between us like smoke. Don't overreact, she repeated. It's Ava's day. You know how these things go, venue limits, budget issues. I'm sure she feels bad. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so far from the truth it didn't even sting. Ava didn't feel bad. Ava didn't even bother to call. And clearly no one around her saw anything wrong with that. She invited 150 people, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I saw the Instagram post, full ballroom. String lights. Custom signs. It doesn't exactly scream, tight guest list. Mom made a sound, a light tisk, like she was tired of having to explain. Claire, don't turn this into a bigger deal than it is. Weddings are stressful. People make decisions. It's not personal. Not personal, I repeated slowly. I'm her sister. There was another pause. Then her voice softened in that syrupy way that always made me feel like a child throwing a tantrum. You've always been so sensitive. It's just one day, sweetie. You'll see her afterward. Maybe do something just the two of you. My jaw clenched. I could already see how this was going to go. I'd express hurt. She'd say I was making drama. Ava would toss me a lazy apology next week. I'd be expected to forgive, smile, and move on, because that's what I always did. but something inside me, something I didn't know I was still holding, snapped loose. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just said, okay, and hung up. I sat there in my apartment, bathed in the low glow of my desk lamp, the city humming outside my window. I stared at the walls I had painted myself, the books I'd carefully arranged, the framed photo of me and Ava at the beach 2 summers ago. In it, she's beaming. I'm half laughing, hair in my eyes, holding her sandals because she didn't want to get them wet. That photo used to make me smile. Now it just felt like evidence of something I made up. A wave of heat crawled up my neck. Not rage, not even sadness, really. It was clarity. This wasn't about one wedding. It wasn't about a guest list or a phone call. It was about every birthday she forgot, every favor she asked for without thanks, every time I was expected to understand, but never once received the same grace in return. I opened my laptop, the screen lighting up like an invitation. If I wasn't going to be at Ava's wedding, I was going to be somewhere better. My fingers moved fast. Flights, hotels, something all-inclusive. Somewhere warm with drinks and silence, and no one asking me to be understanding. I didn't need permission. I didn't need to check in. For the first time in my life, no one was expecting me anywhere, and that felt like freedom. As I confirmed the booking, a quiet strength settled over me. Not defiance, not revenge, just release. Let them have their perfect wedding. Let them sip champagne and laugh under fairy lights. I'd be sipping something better somewhere sunnier. And for once, I wouldn't be waiting for anyone to notice I was missing. The flight confirmations sat in my inbox like a quiet rebellion. But before I let myself enjoy the idea of escape, my mind did what it always does. It wandered backward. I couldn't stop thinking about all the times I had been there for Ava. All the moments that didn't make it onto Instagram, the unglamorous ones, the inconvenient ones, the ones that mattered. I remembered the night she called me sobbing because her boyfriend had cheated again. I'd been in the middle of prepping for a client presentation surrounded by spreadsheets and coffee cups. I dropped everything, got in my car, and drove 2 hours to her apartment. I sat with her on the kitchen floor while she cried into a tub of mint chocolate chip. I didn't leave until the sun came up. I remembered the time she had to move out on short notice after her lease fell through. Her friends bailed. Mom and Dad were out of town. I rented a U-Haul, packed her boxes, and drove her stuff across town by myself. She handed me a latte at the end and said, "You're the best, Claire." I don't know what I'd do without you. Apparently she figured it out, but I never kept score. That's not who I am. I believed in showing up. I believed that love, real love, was quiet, reliable, and unconditional. And it wasn't just the emergencies. There were 1,000 little ways I'd made space for her. Letting her borrow clothes even when I knew they wouldn't come back. Pretending not to be bothered when our parents praised her achievements and skipped over mine. Showing up early to family events to help set up while she arrived late and glowing. When she got engaged, I was genuinely happy for her. I offered to help with the planning. I sent her a list of vendors, helped design the save-the-date cards, even lent her money for the venue deposit when she mentioned they were a little tight on cash. She promised to pay me back, and I believed her. Of course I did. I even suggested her wedding hashtag. Hashtag finally the Finleys. Cute, right? It wasn't just that she cut me from the guest list. It was that she didn't even think it would hurt. She expected me to just understand, to smile and shrug and say, "It's okay, I get it." But I didn't get it. I still don't. Because if the roles were reversed, if I were the one getting married, Ava would be my maid of honor. She'd be there when I picked out my dress. She'd give a speech. She'd be in every photo. Because no matter how imperfect our relationship was, I believed we were unshakable. Turns out I was the only one who thought that. And what made it worse? The silence from our parents. Mom hadn't followed up after the call. Dad hadn't called at all. No one checked in. No one asked if I was okay. The unspoken message was loud and clear. Don't rock the boat. It's Ava's day. Stay quiet. Stay small. That was always my role, wasn't it? The dependable one. The flexible one. The one who made it easier for everyone else to be themselves. But not anymore. Sitting in my apartment with a tropical vacation waiting on the horizon, I finally allowed myself to feel something I had spent years avoiding: resentment. Not just at Ava, but at myself. for always saying yes, for always being understanding, for letting love be a one-way street. I hadn't booked a vacation. I had drawn a line. The irony was hard to ignore. I'd spent the better part of the last 6 months helping Ava plan a wedding I wouldn't even be attending. When she first got engaged, she'd called me breathless with excitement. "Claire, it's finally happening," she squealed over the phone. I said yes, I was genuinely happy for her. I mean, she and David had been together for almost 4 years. They'd weathered a long-distance stretch, 2 job changes, and a particularly awkward Thanksgiving dinner where he spilled cranberry sauce on Mom's new carpet. So yeah, I was thrilled she was getting her fairy tale moment. I dove in immediately. I helped her build a Pinterest board. I compiled a spreadsheet of venues, caterers, photographers, and florists in her budget range. I gave honest feedback on color palettes and helped her draft the wording for her invitations. She hated the first 3 versions, but I didn't mind. We had late-night phone calls where she vented about her future mother-in-law's passive-aggressive comments. I always listened. I always backed her up. When her fiancé's schedule got crazy, I even went to one of the tasting appointments in his place, just so she wouldn't feel alone. She'd texted me later that night, "You're seriously my favorite person. David doesn't get it like you do." I smiled at that message when it came in. I remember feeling warm, like I mattered. When she mentioned that their venue deposit was due earlier than expected, and they were short a few thousand, I didn't hesitate. I wired her the money that afternoon. She insisted she'd pay me back within the month. I told her not to rush. At the time, I didn't consider it a sacrifice. She was my sister. That's what you do for family. But now, looking at it from the outside, it felt more like a transaction I didn't realize I was part of, like I was just another vendor, one she could use and drop when she was done. The worst part, she never even told me I wouldn't be invited. There was no difficult phone call. No awkward conversation, just a cold copy-paste text that sounded like it was meant for a distant coworker. Tough cuts, she called it. A tough cut from the wedding I helped build. I didn't want recognition. I didn't want to be celebrated. But I did expect to be treated like I mattered. At the very least, like I belonged. Instead, I was edited out of a story I helped write. And no one, not Ava, not my mom, not a single soul from our extended family stood up and said, "This isn't right." They all just let it happen. Because Ava had always been the sun in our family's sky and the rest of us were expected to orbit. That realization stung more than the exclusion itself. I closed my laptop and sat quietly for a long time. The silence in my apartment was heavy but clarifying. No texts, no check-ins, just me and the sound of traffic outside my window. Ava's wedding was going to be perfect, at least on the surface. Carefully curated, elegantly filtered. A sea of champagne and chiffon. But I knew the truth beneath the sparkle. And the truth was she had no problem building her dream day on the back of someone she didn't even care to invite. She made her choice. Now it was my turn. If there was a single phrase that could define my role in the Morgan family, it would be this, "Claire, just be the bigger person." I'd heard it since I was a teenager. When Ava forgot my birthday. She's going through a lot. Claire, just be understanding. When Ava got all the praise at family dinners. She's older, she sets the example. When I brought home straight A's and no one noticed, don't make everything a competition. It was always me who was expected to absorb the tension, smooth the edges, let things slide. And most of that came from Mom. She was the queen of emotional convenience, picking and choosing which feelings were valid based on who was expressing them. Ava's frustration, always justified. My disappointment, overreacting. Ava's silence. She's just busy. My silence. Passive-aggressive. I don't think she meant to hurt me. That's the tricky thing with emotional manipulation. It rarely comes in yelling or slammed doors. It comes in shrugs, in sighs, in that tight smile that says, "Can't you just let it go?" Over time, I did. I became the daughter who didn't ask for much, the sister who kept the peace, the woman who handled her own pain in private, journaled her frustration instead of voicing it, and swallowed every uncomfortable feeling with a smile and a, "Don't worry about it." Mom loved to brag about that version of me. She's so independent, she'd say to her friends, "Claire never causes trouble. I hardly have to worry about her." And I used to feel proud of that, like being low maintenance made me worthy. But the truth was, I did want to be worried about sometimes. I wanted someone to ask if I was okay without needing a crisis to prompt it. I wanted to be included without having to earn it by being useful or quiet or small. Instead, I learned how to make myself invisible in plain sight. That's what made the wedding sting so deeply. It wasn't just Ava's choice, it was Mom's silence, the way she casually excused it as no big deal, as if my feelings were a burden rather than a valid response. I could still hear her voice during that phone call. "It's just a wedding. Don't make this about you. She probably assumed you'd understand." Assumed. That word sat in my chest like a stone. They all assumed I'd understand, that I'd stay quiet, that I'd show up after the damage and help clean it up, just like always. And if I'm being honest, that had been the pattern for years. Every time Ava lashed out, I was the one who smoothed things over. Every time a holiday dinner went sideways, I was the one calming everyone down. I didn't have a role in our family, I had a function. I was the buffer, the fixer, the emotional vacuum cleaner. And now, when I finally said nothing, when I chose not to react in the way they expected, I became the problem. The dramatic one, the immature one, for doing the one thing I'd never done before, protecting my peace. I wasn't angry at Mom anymore, not really. Anger required energy, and I was too tired to keep fueling that fire. What I felt was sad. Sad that my quiet strength had been mistaken for indifference. Sad that my love had always been conditional on how useful or agreeable I could be. Sad that it took being cut out for me to finally see the shape of my own boundaries. But most of all, I felt something unfamiliar, something powerful, permission. To stop playing the peacemaker, to start choosing myself. For a long time, I told myself that the imbalance didn't matter, that being overlooked wasn't the same as being unloved. I clung to that belief like a lifeline. It helped explain away the silence, the favoritism, the way Ava's needs always came first. It allowed me to keep the peace and convince myself that I was above needing recognition. But sitting there in my apartment staring at my packed suitcase and the glowing flight confirmation on my phone, the illusion finally broke. It did matter. It mattered that I had poured years into relationships that never poured back. It mattered that my love had been measured by how little space I took up. It mattered that I was expected to be okay with everything as long as Ava was happy. And what did I get in return? A text message. No phone call, no explanation, no sense of remorse. Just 4 sentences that erased over 2 decades of sisterhood. Tough cuts. I wasn't a tough cut. I wasn't a line item on a budget or a last-minute scratch on a seating chart. I was her sister. I was her history. I was the person who had stood beside her through breakups, breakdowns, job changes, and every major chapter of her life. And yet, when it came time for her big day, the moment she'd presumably want to share with the people who mattered most, I didn't make the list. I'd spent so long minimizing myself to accommodate the people I loved. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to be the problem child. I didn't want to give anyone a reason to pull away. So instead, I pulled myself in. I folded myself smaller, quieter, easier to digest. And now I was being punished with absence. There's a special kind of hurt that comes from being forgotten by the people you never forget. It's not loud, it doesn't come with yelling or broken plates. It's slow and quiet, and it sinks deep like cold water seeping through the seams of a coat. That night I sat in bed with the lights off, scrolling through Ava's Instagram. She was posting previews, centerpieces, bridesmaid dresses, behind-the-scenes shots from her bachelorette weekend. Perfect angles, warm filters, smiles that didn't include me. I zoomed in on one photo, Ava laughing beside her maid of honor, a woman I barely recognized. I wasn't jealous. I was just erased. The realization felt like a clean slice. She had rewritten her story without me in it. And the worst part? She didn't think I'd mind. That's what stayed with me, not the exclusion itself, but the assumption that I would be okay with it, that I would understand, that I would stay loyal, stay quiet, stay useful. For the first time, I truly saw the version of me that my family had come to rely on. The helper, the backup, the afterthought. And I hated that version. I wasn't angry anymore, not just at Ava or Mom or the system we'd all silently upheld. I was angry at myself for enabling it, for teaching everyone that I would always be available, always say yes, always come through. I stared at my reflection in the black screen of my phone, and I made a silent promise: no more. No more giving without receiving. No more shrinking to fit. No more sacrificing my place just to keep others comfortable. This trip wasn't just a getaway, it was a line in the sand. And once I crossed it, there'd be no going back. There was no dramatic music playing when I booked the flight, no lightning strike, no emotional montage. Just me barefoot in my living room wearing an old college sweatshirt, staring at a glowing laptop screen with a tropical resort tab open and my credit card already halfway out of my wallet. I'd been browsing for almost an hour, not out of hesitation but out of sheer disbelief that I was actually doing it, that I wasn't just fantasizing about getting away, I was planning it. The cursor blinked inside the search bar. Destination. My fingers hovered, then typed Bali. Not because I'd always dreamed of going there, not because it was on my vision board, but because it was far beautiful and silent. 3 things I desperately needed. I chose a resort tucked in the jungle, far from crowds and wedding hashtags, the kind of place with infinity pools, private decks, yoga pavilions, and spa menus so extravagant they felt like fiction. The pictures were absurd green canopies framing crystal pools, floating breakfasts served on bamboo trays, a suite with floor-to-ceiling glass walls, and a soaking tub in the middle of the room. It was paradise, and for the first time in my life, I didn't stop myself with guilt or practicality. I didn't ask if I could afford it. I could. I didn't wonder what people would think. I didn't care. I didn't call anyone for permission. No one had earned that right anymore. I just booked it. The screen flashed, confirmation email sent, and just like that, the version of me who always waited for someone else to say it was okay was gone. I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly. My body didn't feel lighter. Not yet, but there was a shift. Subtle but seismic. Like I'd finally opened a window in a house that had been sealed shut for years. This wasn't about revenge. I wasn't doing it to prove anything to Ava or to our mom or to the rest of the family who'd stayed so conveniently quiet. This was for me. I was tired of being the girl who stayed behind, the one who filled in for missing pieces and stitched things back together with silence and smiles, the one who never asked for more because she was too busy convincing herself she didn't need it. That version of Claire was exhausted. She deserved a break. I grabbed my suitcase from the closet and tossed it onto the bed. For once, packing wasn't a chore, it was a declaration. Bikini, linen pants, my favorite sunglasses, no heels, no makeup bag, no dresses appropriate for someone else's idea of elegance. Only what felt like freedom. As I zipped up the suitcase, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text from Ava. I stared at her name. My finger hovered. For a split second, I wondered if this was it, the apology, the admission, the "I made a mistake." But when I opened it, it was just a boomerang of her holding a champagne glass with her bridesmaids. No caption, just confetti emojis. She hadn't even noticed I hadn't responded to the earlier message. Or maybe she had and didn't care. Either way, it confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't thinking about me, so why was I still thinking about her? I turned off my phone, slid it into airplane mode, and set it face down. No drama, no speeches, no lengthy goodbye text, just peace. The flight left in 3 days, and this time I wouldn't be missing out. I'd be disappearing on purpose. The airport was buzzing with the usual chaos, rolling suitcases, crying toddlers, gate announcements that echoed like ghosts over the intercom, but for the first time in years I wasn't stressed. I wasn't late. I wasn't juggling someone else's emergency. I was calm, almost unnervingly so. I checked in, passed through security, and walked through the terminal as if I'd done it 1,000 times. But this time was different. This time I didn't have anyone texting me for updates, no one asking for souvenirs, no one needing me to check in when you land. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not Ava, not Mom, not even the cousin who occasionally remembered my birthday. My departure wasn't a cry for attention. It was an act of clarity. I boarded the flight, settled into my seat an aisle in premium economy, thank you very much, and exhaled as the engines hummed to life. As the plane took off, the lights of the city stretched beneath us like a map of all the places I'd been expected to show up for people who wouldn't do the same for me. I didn't feel angry. I felt unburdened. The seatbelt light blinked off. I leaned back, ordered a drink, and pulled out my journal, the same leather one I'd written in the night I got Ava's message. On a fresh page, I wrote, "This time, I'm not going to rescue anyone. This time, I'm rescuing myself." It felt bold, almost theatrical. But it was true. I wasn't running away, I was walking away. From expectations, from old roles, from people who only called me when things went wrong but never invited me when things went right. My mind drifted to Ava's wedding, probably just days away now. She'd be at a final fitting, posting flat lays of her veil and her shoes, captioning mirror selfies with things like, "Can't believe it's almost here." Her friends would comment with heart eye emojis. Our mom would be helping her get ready, beaming with pride, fussing over centerpieces and napkin folds. And no one would be asking, "Where's Claire?" because no one ever did. I imagined the ceremony, rows of guests, vows, flashbulbs, champagne flutes, her life unfolding without me, like I'd never been part of it at all. And yet there I'd been for so many moments that led up to this. When she didn't have money for a deposit, when she couldn't figure out what to say in her vows, when she cried because the bridesmaids' dresses came in the wrong shade of blush. I was there. But when it came time to stand beside her to witness the thing I helped build, suddenly I was not a priority. I sipped my drink and stared out the window at the endless black sky. No stars, just space. Open, quiet. I thought I'd feel more pain. Some part of me expected guilt to crash down like turbulence, but instead I felt something else. Relief. The kind you don't know you need until it's already washing over you. For once, I didn't have to pretend I was okay with being treated like a footnote. I didn't have to minimize my disappointment or edit my emotions for someone else's comfort. I didn't have to perform anymore. A soft chime rang overhead. The cabin lights dimmed. I closed my eyes. In a few hours, I'd be on the other side of the world, in a country where no one knew me as the quiet sister or the reliable one. No one would expect me to keep the peace, swallow the tension, or just let it go. They wouldn't know anything about me. And maybe for the first time I could figure out who I was outside of everyone else's version of me. As the plane cut through the sky, I let myself imagine a different version of the story. One where I wasn't the supporting character in someone else's celebration. One where I was the main character in my own. When the plane landed in Denpasar, it was just past 8 a.m. local time. The airport was open-air warm and carried the scent of salt water and sandalwood. I stepped off the jet bridge and into the thick golden air like I'd entered another life, one where I wasn't anyone's sister, anyone's daughter, anyone's second choice. I was just Claire. A driver held a small sign with my name on it, and I couldn't help but smile as I walked toward him. I had never had someone waiting for me like that, not in airports, not in life. It felt cinematic. The SUV was sleek and quiet, stocked with cold towels and bottled water. As we drove along winding coastal roads, I watched the ocean pass like a silent witness to my rebellion. My phone stayed off. I didn't feel the urge to check texts or scroll through other people's lives. This moment was mine. The resort appeared like a mirage among the jungle, an architectural dream tucked between cliffs and palms, floor-to-ceiling glass, dark wood, white stone, infinity pools that spilled into endless green. At check-in, I was greeted with a flower lei and a drink made of something floral and chilled. The receptionist smiled like I belonged there. No questions. No judgment, just "Welcome, Ms. Morgan." No one asked why I was alone. That was the beauty of this place. It didn't require explanation. It didn't see solitude as something to fix. It simply offered space. My room was beyond anything I expected. Private plunge pool, canopy bed, marble tub with a view of the treetops. I stood there barefoot, luggage untouched, staring out over the jungle and realized how quiet it was. No one asking for anything, no pressure to respond, no expectation to perform. Just silence. And in that silence, I found a strange kind of safety. I changed into a swimsuit, threw on a linen cover-up, and stepped out onto the deck. The water shimmered in the late morning sun. I dipped my feet in first, then slipped in fully warm, soft still. Floating in that pool surrounded by birdsong and filtered light, something in my chest began to unclench. This was more than luxury. This was reclamation. This was what it felt like to choose myself unapologetically. Later, I ordered room service, fresh mango coconut rice, hot coffee, in a hand-thrown ceramic mug. I ate it on the balcony, hair still damp, legs curled beneath me, sun on my shoulders. And then, almost without thinking, I opened Instagram. I snapped a photo, the view from my breakfast table, plunge pool, tropical forest fruit plate in soft focus. Captioned it with, "Guess I didn't make the guest list, but I think I'll survive." I hit post. It wasn't meant to be petty. It wasn't revenge. It was truth. A soft declaration that I existed, that I wasn't sitting in a dark room sulking while my family clinked champagne glasses and played pretend. I was here. I was healing. I was choosing joy in a place where no one expected me to shrink myself to fit. Within minutes, comments started to roll in laughing emojis from old friends, "You go girl" messages from college acquaintances, and even a reply from my cousin Melissa. "Take me with you next time." I smiled, tucked the phone away, and leaned back. Let Ava have her fairy tale. Let Mom play mother of the bride. Let them all circle each other in that delicate dance of control, expectations, and appearances. I had stepped off that stage. No more pretending. No more proving. Just peace. Just me. By the time I returned from a long walk through the resort's botanical path, my Instagram post had already made the rounds. The notifications lit up my phone like a New Year's Eve board: likes, comments, shares, even a couple of reposts. I wasn't trying to go viral. I didn't even tag the resort. But apparently a plate of tropical fruit with a pointed caption spoke to more people than I expected. One DM stood out from Jake, my cousin. "Wait, did they really not invite you, WTF?" Then another. "Honestly, good for you." A part of me wanted to respond, to say thank you, to laugh with him the way we used to when we were teenagers hiding from our family's drama behind closed doors at Christmas. But I didn't reply. I didn't want to be pulled back into the orbit of people who had stayed silent when it mattered, who only spoke up once it became interesting. I took a deep breath, slid the phone under a throw pillow, and walked out to the deck. The afternoon sun was filtering through the leaves, casting rippled shadows across the pool. Birds chirped overhead in unpredictable rhythm. The breeze carried the scent of frangipani and something faintly citrus. I closed my eyes and let it wrap around me like an old friend. For the first time in years, I felt like no one could reach me. It didn't last long. By early evening, the messages started rolling in from my mother. First one, "Mom, where are you?" Then Mom, "Claire, are you seriously missing your sister's wedding over this?" And finally, Mom, "You're being selfish. Petty. Grow up." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I took another photo, this time of the sunset bleeding orange and violet into the jungle sky, and sent it to myself with the caption, "Perfect view. Zero noise." Then I opened my messages, scrolled to Mom's name, and hit block. There was a strange kind of pleasure in the silence that followed. Not the vengeful kind, the protective kind. The kind you feel when you finally put down a bag you didn't realize was breaking your back. A few moments later, another number came through: Ava. I stared at the screen for a long time. My finger hovered. Let it ring. No voicemail, no apology, just silence. I was starting to prefer that. More texts came in. Jake again. Aunt Lisa. Even David's sister, whom I'd only met once. I skimmed through them like headlines. "Everyone's freaking out. Mom says you're overreacting. Grandma doesn't understand what's going on. Ava's really upset. She keeps checking your page." It was almost amusing how quickly I'd become the center of attention simply by removing myself. That was the thing, wasn't it? They never noticed me until I stopped showing up. And now, with Ava's big day looming, their control was slipping. Because the person they all expected to tolerate the slight, keep the peace, and eventually come back wasn't playing that role anymore. She was here, in Bali, feet in the water, cocktail in hand, watching the sky turn lavender while everyone else scrambled. I opened one last message from Melissa. Okay, I know things are complicated, but low-key, this is iconic. I let out a quiet laugh, not because it was funny, but because it felt true. For once, I wasn't asking anyone to choose me. I had already chosen myself. And it felt better than any wedding toast, any seat at any table ever could. Back home, they were preparing for the perfect day. Here I was learning that my perfect day had already started with silence, boundaries, and the audacity to put myself first. The next morning, I woke up to birdsong and sunlight spilling through the gauzy curtains of my villa. I lay in bed for a moment, just breathing. No alarm, no calls, no crisis. No weight on my chest other than the quiet satisfaction that I had done something entirely for myself. The sky outside was painted in soft pinks and golds. The air smelled like fresh rain and hibiscus. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like I was bracing for something. I stretched, pulled on a robe, and wandered out to the patio where breakfast had already been delivered. A bamboo tray floated in the plunge pool, fresh papaya banana pancakes, coffee in a delicate blue and white cup, and a mimosa with a sprig of mint. I snapped a photo not for Instagram, just for me. A memory. Proof that this version of life was real. As I ate, I thought about who I had been before all of this. The version of me who would have cried herself to sleep, who would have waited by the phone hoping Ava would change her mind, who would have still shown up at the wedding with a wrapped gift and a forced smile just to keep everyone else comfortable. That Claire was gone, not bitter, not angry, just done. Done performing. Done making herself smaller so other people could shine. Done pretending that being left out didn't matter when it did. The thing is, when you stop being useful to people who only valued your silence, you stop being included altogether, and that was the clearest freedom I'd ever known. Later that day, I booked a massage at the spa, an open-air pavilion nestled into the cliffside. I lay there with my eyes closed, the sound of waves crashing far below, while someone worked years of stress out of my back. When it was over, I stayed for another hour, sipping ginger tea and watching a gecko crawl along the stone railing. There was no need to rush. I had nowhere else to be, and for once, that didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like control. In the afternoon, I posted one more photo, a quiet shot of my feet dangling over the edge of the pool, the sky reflected in the water like glass. The caption, "Sometimes peace looks like disappearing." And not explaining. It wasn't a jab. It wasn't even directed at anyone. It was a truth I'd spent my whole life afraid to claim. The reaction came quickly. Comments from friends, old college roommates, even coworkers I hadn't spoken to in months. This is the energy I need. Claire. I felt this in my soul. You didn't disappear. You finally arrived. And maybe that was true. Maybe disappearing from someone else's narrative was the only way I could start writing my own. By evening, my phone had racked up more missed calls. Ava, Mom, even Jake again. The messages were more frantic now, less performative, more desperate. But I didn't open them. I had no interest in being guilted back into a role I'd never auditioned for, but had somehow been cast in my entire life. I wasn't their fixer anymore. I wasn't the one who swooped in at the last minute to calm everyone down and hold things together with invisible thread. They made that clear when they crossed my name off the guest list. Now I was returning the favor quietly, peacefully, and completely. That night, as I lay under linen sheets in a room that smelled faintly of lavender and ocean wind, I stared up at the wooden ceiling beams and felt something shift inside me. Not regret, not triumph, just presence. I was here, in my body, in my breath, in a life that belonged entirely to me. Let Ava walk down the aisle tomorrow without me. Let the photographers snap 100 photos she'd crop and filter and post. She would have her moment, and so would I. Mine just wouldn't come with a bouquet or a speech. It would come with silence, with a choice, and the certainty that I would never again settle for being someone's backup plan. I woke up to chaos. Not here, of course. Here in Bali, everything was still soft and warm and golden. The sun poured through the open doors of my villa, the breeze carried the scent of orchids and sea salt, and my body felt weightless after the best sleep I'd had in months. But my phone was vibrating non-stop on the nightstand, skittering across the wood like it was possessed. 27 missed calls, 9 voicemails, dozens of unread messages. At first I thought maybe something had happened to Grandma, or maybe there was some kind of emergency back home. I rubbed my eyes, heart beginning to race, and unlocked the screen. "Mom, call me. It's urgent. Ava, please, I need you. Jake, Claire. Dude, you are not gonna believe what just happened." My stomach tightened. I scrolled through the sea of notifications, most of them vague and frantic. "Where are you? It's a disaster. Please respond." Then I saw a message from Melissa, my cousin who never texted unless something truly wild was going down. Melissa. "The wedding fell apart. Call me now." I sat up, fully awake now. The silk sheet slid off my legs, and the ocean breeze suddenly felt colder. I opened the first voicemail from Mom. Her voice was sharp, breathless. "Claire, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this isn't the time for one of your tantrums. Ava is devastated. We need you here. This family needs to come together now." Click. Next one from Ava. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Claire, I don't know how this got so bad. I just please call me back. I need you. Everyone's freaking out." Click. I pressed play on Jake's voicemail next, expecting something vague. Instead, I got a panicked whisper. "Dude, the groom left. Like mid-reception. Full-on fight. Walked out. Ava lost it. Mom's blaming Lisa, Lisa's blaming Grandma, and Grandma's blaming the universe. You really dodged a bullet." I blinked. Wait, what? I reread Melissa's message again. The wedding fell apart. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe the groom got cold feet. Maybe Ava exploded under pressure. Maybe all the tightly packed dysfunction finally cracked open, and without me there to absorb the blow, everything detonated. I should have felt bad. I should have felt sad. But instead I felt vindicated. This family had cut me out to preserve their picture-perfect day. Ava had decided I was expendable, unworthy of a seat at her table. And now that the fantasy had fallen apart, they remembered who I was. Not the forgotten sister, the fixer, the quiet problem solver, the emotional duct tape, and now they wanted me back not to celebrate with, but to clean up their mess. I stood up, walked out onto the balcony, and stared at the ocean. The waves moved with slow, unstoppable rhythm, steady, unbothered, free. I took a deep breath and whispered, almost without meaning to know. They made the choice to exclude me. Now they could live with it. I hadn't even finished my coffee before the next wave of messages came in. Jake again, Ava's sobbing. Mom's pacing like it's DEFCON 1. Everyone's asking where you are, Melissa. Okay, you need to hear this directly from me. The groom walked out during the reception. They were arguing loudly and he just left. Left the venue. No goodbyes. Nothing. I stared at the screen, trying to picture it. Ava in her designer dress, surrounded by flowers and filtered light, chasing after a groom with cold feet and a short fuse. My brain almost rejected the image. She always had such a grip on appearances. She knew how to smile through anything. Apparently not this. I opened another message. This one from Uncle Rob. "Claire, your sister is beside herself. Please come home. Talk some sense into her. She listens to you." I barked out a laugh, a sharp, involuntary sound. Listens to me. The same sister who didn't even think I deserved a seat at her wedding. The same family who called me petty 2 days ago for not letting it go. Now they wanted me to be the glue again. Now I mattered. I leaned back in the lounge chair, drink in hand, and let the irony settle in. The same people who erased me from their perfect story were now flipping pages searching for my name. But I was no longer a background character. They wanted me to fly halfway around the world, step into their disaster, and do what I'd always done: fix it, patch it, swallow my pride for the greater good. But what they didn't realize was that I'd stopped playing that part the moment I clicked book flight. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Ava this time. "Claire, please, I don't know what to do. I really, really need you." There it was, not just panic, but desperation. The girl who had always been center stage, the one who had all the spotlight, all the support, all the praise, was now asking for the one thing she refused to give me: a place beside her. And for the first time, I had no desire to give it. Not out of spite, out of self-respect. I looked around at where I was. The sunlight danced off the water. A soft breeze rustled through the trees. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing acoustic guitar. It was a moment of stillness, of joy, of complete sacred peace. To trade this for chaos, for guilt, for a front-row seat to a crisis I didn't cause and wasn't welcome at until everything went wrong. No, thank you. I opened my camera and snapped a photo, my legs stretched out by the pool, the sky a perfect blue, my drink garnished with mint and lime. I typed a caption, "Sorry I'm a little busy enjoying my overreaction. Hope the wedding was everything you hoped for." And I sent it, not to Instagram, to Ava. Then I blocked her number. I blocked Mom's too. And just in case, I blocked Jake. Not because I was mad at him, but because I didn't want to leave a single crack open for guilt to crawl through. I turned my phone to Do Not Disturb, set it face down, and exhaled deeply. They had made their choice. Now they could live with it. For once, I wasn't the afterthought. I was the boundary. That evening, after a long swim and a glass of wine by the pool, I did something I hadn't planned on doing. I called Melissa. She was the only person whose messages hadn't come with guilt or fake concern. She didn't ask me to fix anything. She just reported the chaos with the kind of detached amusement I appreciated. She picked up on the first ring. "Oh my God, you're alive," she breathed. "Please tell me you're sipping something tropical and smiling." "Close," I said. "Gin and tonic feet in the water. You, living vicariously through you while watching this entire family explode like a Jenga tower soaked in gasoline." I let out a laugh. "So, it's really that bad?" "Oh, Claire," she said, dragging the vowels. "You have no idea. You want the rundown?" "Please," I said, stretching out under the stars. "Give me the highlight reel." Melissa cleared her throat theatrically. "All right." So the groom David got into a massive argument with Ava in the middle of the reception. Apparently she snapped at one of the servers and he called her out in front of a few guests. I raised an eyebrow. He did what, called her entitled and exhausting. Her words, not mine. She screamed at him. He screamed back. Then, brace yourself. He dropped his champagne glass, walked out of the ballroom, and left the venue entirely, car and all. I sat up. He left. As in left. Oh, completely vanished. And get this, while everyone was still frozen trying to pretend it didn't happen, your mom turned to Aunt Lisa and said, "If Claire had been here, none of this would have happened." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "Yep, dead serious. She said you would have calmed Ava down, gotten David to stay, smoothed it all out like you always do." I barked out a laugh. "So now it's my fault the wedding imploded." "Oh, it gets better," Melissa said gleefully. Lisa snapped back with something like, "That's rich coming from the woman who let her daughter cut her own sister out of the guest list." I nearly choked on my drink. No. Oh yes. Full shouting match. Then Grandma got involved, told Ava she brought this on herself for disrespecting blood. Ava started crying and threw a centerpiece at the wall. Flowers everywhere. I leaned back, staring at the stars. Wow. Yeah. Everyone kept trying to call you like you were the family's emotional fire extinguisher. It was kind of poetic. I sat with that for a moment. I imagined them all in their formal wear, sweating under string lights, trying to figure out how to salvage a moment that had already passed. The one person they had dismissed as unnecessary, now haunting the entire room by her absence. "How's Ava now?" I asked. "Still crying," Melissa said, unfazed. "Last I heard, she was trying to get David on the phone while Mom called the caterers to cancel dessert." "That's a shame," I said flatly, and meant it. Melissa chuckled. "You know, Claire, I'm not saying this is your villain origin story, but if you ever wanted to buy a cape, I'd support it." I smiled into the darkness. "I don't need a cape. I just needed a boundary." There was a pause on the line, then Melissa said softly, "Well, you finally drew one. And this time no one could cross it. No more guilt, no more second-guessing, just the truth exposed, chaotic, and somehow healing." After I hung up with Melissa, I didn't say anything for a while. I just sat there, legs dangling in the pool, watching the surface ripple beneath the moonlight. The world felt still, but not empty. Still like something had settled, something that had been rattling around inside me for years. All the noise had finally stopped. For so long I thought I had to earn peace. That if I was kind enough, quiet enough, useful enough, eventually I'd be invited to rest. But peace wasn't something I had to be given. It was something I could take. And now that I had it, I wasn't about to hand it back in exchange for guilt or nostalgia. My phone buzzed again. One last text had come through from Ava before I blocked her earlier. I hadn't opened it yet. I hesitated, thumb hovering, then tapped it open. Ava, I know you're mad, but I didn't think it would hurt you like this. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd come anyway. I need you. There it was. Not an apology, not accountability, just need. Because that was always the arrangement, wasn't it? I was supposed to show up even when I wasn't wanted. I was supposed to stay calm even when I was disrespected. I was supposed to give and give even when I was cut out. And if I didn't, I was the problem. I reread her message one more time, then hit delete. No response, no closure speech, no maybe someday. Some stories don't need a dramatic ending. Sometimes the door just closes and stays closed. Later that night, I walked the garden paths behind the resort. The lights were soft and golden, strung between palm trees like little floating stars. The air was warm against my skin. My shoulders felt loose for the first time in weeks. I thought about Ava's wedding dress, probably balled up in a hotel room now. I thought about the speeches, no one gave the cake, no one ate the champagne left to go flat. And strangely, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free, not because they had suffered, but because I finally chose not to. I had spent most of my life waiting to be seen, waiting for someone in my family to say, "You matter just as much." But their silence had already spoken. So now I was listening to something else, my own voice. The next morning, I posted one last photo, me at breakfast, sunlight on my face, holding a mimosa and smiling. Not performative, not filtered, just real. Caption: starting my day stress-free. Hope everyone back home is doing okay. No hashtags, no tags, no shade. Just one final signal I was no longer part of their chaos, and I wasn't coming back to clean it up. I didn't need an apology. I didn't even need closure. I just needed to stop asking people who couldn't see me to validate that I was there. That evening, I booked a massage and ordered dinner on the beach. I watched the waves roll in, and in the lull between crashing tides, I whispered to myself, not angry, not bitter, just certain, let them clean up their own mess. I'm finally done. And I meant it. I hadn't planned to become anyone's message. That last photo, the one of me smiling over breakfast with the caption, starting my day stress-free. Hope everyone back home is doing okay, wasn't meant to be anything big. Just another quiet act of closure, another mile between me and the chaos I had left behind. But the internet had other plans. It started slowly. A few more comments than usual, a couple of reposts on people's stories. Then someone somewhere screenshot it, paired it with a tweet that said her sister cut her from the wedding. She booked a luxury solo trip. Then the wedding fell apart and they begged her to come back. She said no. Queen behavior. And just like that, it spread. Within a few hours, the tweet had over 10,000 likes, then 50,000, then articles, TikToks, reaction videos. My post was being stitched with messages like, "This is why you set boundaries. You're not dramatic. You're just done. When they don't save you a seat, build your own damn table." Strangers flooded my DMs. Some shared their own stories of being excluded of families who didn't appreciate them until they stopped showing up. Others just said thank you, as if my silence had somehow said something loud enough for them, too. And the funny thing was, I hadn't even told the full story. No names, no thread, no rant, just a photo, a caption, and the quiet truth behind it. I didn't feel famous. I felt understood. For the first time in my life, people actually saw me, and not because I bent over backward to earn it, not because I fixed someone else's crisis, but because I did the exact opposite, because I walked away. The irony wasn't lost on me. My entire life I had been told to be quiet, be reasonable, be forgiving. And the moment I stopped playing nice, stopped explaining myself, stopped showing up on command, I finally became visible. I went for a walk that afternoon, phone buzzing nonstop in my pocket, and ended up at the edge of a cliffside lounge overlooking the sea. The wind was warm, the waves below rolled slow and steady. I ordered a coconut, sat back in the shaded chair, and let myself breathe. I didn't owe anyone an explanation, not my family, not the internet, not even myself. I had already said everything I needed to say. Through silence, through distance, through presence. A notification buzzed, a message request from someone I didn't know. "Thank you for reminding me it's okay to walk away." I smiled, not because I wanted to be thanked, but because somewhere in that digital tidal wave, I realized I hadn't just walked away from Ava's wedding, I'd walked away from every moment I made myself small for someone else's comfort. From every time I said, "It's fine," when it wasn't. From every time I showed up for people who would never do the same for me. I took a sip from the coconut and leaned back, letting the sun hit my face. The thing about walking away is that people assume it's about them. But sometimes it's just about you finally choosing stillness over noise, clarity over chaos, self-worth over obligation. Later that night, I turned my phone off, not out of avoidance, but intention. I wasn't running from the messages. I just didn't need them anymore. The validation I'd craved for years had come, not from the people I chased, but from myself and somehow the world that had always seemed too far away to care. I'd gone from the forgotten sister to a quiet symbol. And while that wasn't the plan, it felt fitting. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Not because of anxiety, not because of anyone calling me, just naturally, gently. I sat on the balcony wrapped in a robe, watching the horizon shift from inky blue to soft gold. There was no noise but the waves and the rustling leaves and the rhythmic pulse of my own breath. For the first time in years, I wasn't starting the day in reaction to someone else's needs. I wasn't fielding texts, cleaning up drama, or bracing myself for another round of emotional acrobatics. I was just here, alive, still, whole. And it felt so rare, so sacred that I didn't want to let it go. I made coffee in the little villa kitchen and sipped it barefoot while scrolling through messages I had mostly ignored the day before. "Jake, Mom, and Aunt Lisa are planning to show up at your apartment when you get back. Just a heads up. Melissa, they're still spiraling. Ava keeps saying the wedding was cursed. Unknown number. We need to talk as a family." I rolled my eyes, not even angry anymore. Just tired. It was almost funny the way they all expected me to come back and plug myself right back into the same spot like a missing puzzle piece they suddenly remembered existed. As if I would walk through the door, reset the dynamic, pretend nothing happened. As if I would still want to. Then came a message from Mom, short-clipped, performative. "This isn't funny, Claire. Emily is heartbroken. Do you even care?" The answer was simple. I did care. I just didn't care enough to undo the boundary I had finally built. Not for guilt, not for obligation, not even for peacekeeping. Because peacekeeping is not the same as peace, and I wasn't sacrificing one more piece of myself to protect people from the consequences of their own choices. I put the phone down, picked up my laptop, and stared at the open tabs. I had originally booked 5 nights here. I was supposed to fly back the following evening, but the thought of walking back into that cold apartment, into a city where they could knock on my door and drag me back into their mess, it made my skin crawl. I clicked the airline tab, extended my return flight by another week, then emailed the front desk and upgraded to a larger villa, one with a hammock and a view of the sea. I wasn't just staying longer. I was staying gone. As far as they were concerned, I had nothing left to give. When Melissa texted again, "Wait, you're extending your trip," I simply replied, "Yeah, they wanted to cut me out. I'm cutting myself off." There was a long pause. Then she responded, "Okay, that's actually iconic. Tell me everything when you get back, whenever that is." I smiled, dropped the phone beside my mimosa, and let the breeze tangle my hair. This wasn't revenge. This was renewal. No more asking for space. No more waiting for invitations to be seen, included, loved properly. I wasn't trying to be the better person anymore. I was just trying to be a free one. And freedom, it turned out, tasted like citrus and ocean air and mornings where no one expected me to be anything other than at peace. By midday, I was lounging beneath a canopy, listening to the water lap against stone, while a stranger refilled my drink and called me by my first name. Claire. Not the fixer, not the reasonable one. Just Claire. No role, no label, no burden. And for the first time ever, that was more than enough. A few days later, I found myself standing barefoot on the deck of my upgraded villa, staring out at the endless stretch of ocean. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting gold onto the waves, warming the wood beneath my feet. I felt no rush, no pressure, no notifications demanding my attention, just stillness. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't tempted to look back. Not to check in, not to explain, not even to make sure they understood. They didn't need to understand. I did. I opened Instagram not to scroll, but to post one final photo. A simple one, my hand resting on a railing, the ocean behind it, my shadow falling across the sunlit deck. The caption came to me instantly like it had always been there. They uninvited me from their fairy tale, so I gave myself paradise. I hit post, then set my phone down. There was no dramatic music, no closing montage, just peace, and a quiet sense that I didn't need to fight for visibility anymore. I had seen myself, I had chosen myself, and that would always be enough. Back home, the wedding disaster was already fading into gossip. Ava's meltdown was now a cautionary tale. Mom's spin control likely in full swing. They were rewriting the narrative in real time, trying to frame my absence, however, made them feel safest. Let them. I was done being the footnote. I had written a new story now, one where I wasn't waiting for a seat at their table. I had built my own. I used to think I needed closure, a long, tearful apology, a reckoning, some heartfelt moment where Ava would finally say, "I'm sorry. I see you now." But standing here with the wind in my hair and the horizon stretching wide and unbothered in every direction, I realized something quietly, deeply freeing. I didn't need her apology, because I no longer needed her approval. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means releasing the hope that the past could have been any different. What happened, happened. They cut me out, and I walked away, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And in walking away, I found everything I had been searching for while waiting for their attention: clarity, calm, joy. There's a kind of relief that comes when you finally stop performing. When you stop chasing the version of yourself that made other people comfortable. When you sit in your own silence and realize, it's not lonely, it's honest. They may never understand the hurt they caused. They may never admit it. They may never say the words I used to cry for in private. But I don't need them to. Because the truth isn't theirs to give me. It's mine to hold. And this truth is simple: I mattered even when they didn't see it. I belong even when they didn't invite me. I am whole even without their validation. So, no, I won't be coming home to have a family discussion. I won't sit in a living room circle while people deflect, redirect, or ask me to make things easier again. I've done enough making things easier. Now I'm just making things real, for myself. No more shrinking, no more silence, no more waiting to be chosen. I choose me. And it turns out I was never the problem. I was just the mirror. If you're watching this and something inside you feels too familiar, if you've ever been the one who gets left out but asked to forgive first, the one who stays silent to keep peace for everyone but yourself, the one who loves deeply but always gets the short end of the invitation, then this story isn't just mine, it's yours too. Here's what I've learned. You don't have to wait for people to see your worth to start living like you have it. You don't have to keep proving your loyalty to people who only love you when it's convenient. And you sure as hell don't need to sit at tables where your name was never written down. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for walking away. You are not dramatic for demanding the respect they give to everyone else. You are enough, as you are, without their permission, without their applause. So if no one's ever said this to you before, let me be the first. It's okay to choose yourself, even if it makes them uncomfortable, even if they call it petty, even if they say you've changed. Because maybe you have. Maybe you finally stopped shrinking to fit a space you were never meant to live in, and maybe that's not a loss. Maybe it's the beginning. Tell me in the comments, have you ever walked away from a situation where you weren't being valued? Or are you still trying to convince someone to treat you like you matter? You're not alone, and you don't have to keep waiting. Hit like if you've ever chosen peace over approval. Share this with someone who needs the reminder. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it. There are more real stories coming your way, because your healing starts where their approval ends.